Hear the snap of bacon in a cast-iron skillet, and the hum of voices. Sunlight peeking through checkered curtains. Smell the rich toasty bread and fresh coffee swirling in the air. Families in the 1970s stretched every ingredient, turning humble oats, eggs, and leftovers into feasts with real heart. But why did these thrifty, creative breakfasts quietly vanish? What can they teach us about making mornings special again? Grab a seat, we're about to uncover the secrets of these lost kitchen rituals. Step into the country kitchen again. But now let's zoom in on a single morning, where the clatter of spoons and the sizzle of a battered frying pan set the soundtrack. It's 1976. The air is chilly, and the windows fog just a little from the heat of the stove. You're not waking up to a spread of store-bought cereals or name-brand treats. Nope, it's the sweet, stubborn smell of bubbling oatmeal and the tang of black coffee that lets everyone know breakfast is nearly ready. Let's talk about the real backbone of those country breakfasts, the humble pantry staples. There's a battered sack of rolled oats, some dry bread that's a bit past its prime, and a carton of eggs that was a real splurge this week. These might sound like scraps, but back then, families got creative with what little they had. There's a reason you saw so many big jars and tins lining shelves. They'd keep everything from flour to molasses, cornmeal to beans. Anything stretchable. Anything that wouldn't spoil fast. Oats might seem boring today, but every kid in the house knew how to dress them up. You'd toss in a cinnamon stick if there was one hiding in the back of the drawer. Or maybe a pinch of brown sugar. If you couldn't spare that, someone would break up apple peels or scatter in whatever nuts had survived the holidays. Oats weren't just porridge. They could be pressed into pancakes, baked in a little custard, and even fried into golden cakes when there weren't enough eggs to go around. That's the heart of breakfast ingenuity. Every ingredient had 3 lives. Day-old bread? That stuff never saw the trash. Some mornings, the bread was cubed and soaked in a quick custard, milk, eggs, a dash of pepper, then pushed into a casserole with bits of onion or leftover cheese and popped in the oven. The result? Savory bread pudding, warm and golden. Other days, the heels of bread became French toast if there was a splash of milk left, or crunchy sweet croutons scattered onto oatmeal for just a touch of texture. Every crumb mattered. Nothing went to waste if you could help it. Eggs, when they were around, were almost magical. Someone might fry them in the same pan where sausage had just finished, soaking in those spices and fat. Scrambled eggs in the 1970s kitchen were hardly ever just eggs. If there was a lonely potato or half a green pepper, it got tossed into the pan. Sometimes, eggs were whisked with leftovers and baked, turning scraps into something special that filled the house with a savory aroma. The kids dared each other to guess what surprise mom or dad might have snuck in today. A standout scene comes straight from the old farmhouse table, where steam rose from chipped mugs and laughter bounced off worn wooden walls. There's Grandma pulling a casserole from the oven, calling everyone to sit, even if the table's creaky and there aren't quite enough chairs. You can almost hear the chatter. Did you find the last piece of bacon in there? Pass the apple butter. The food wasn't fancy, but sitting elbow to elbow, sharing what little you had, filled everyone with more comfort than any fancy calf. Here's a trick they mastered: swapping in whatever you had, whenever you had to. No eggs? Use a mashed-up banana for pancakes. Not enough milk? Water with a splash of powdered milk got the job done. Oats running low? Bulk up with grated carrot or a handful of leftover mashed potatoes. These little swaps mattered so much, they turned leftovers into surprises and kept breakfast from being the same old thing day after day. Even the atmosphere got creative. Mornings were never quiet. Someone's always stoking the fire, reaching for the chipped salt shaker, clanking a spoon against a mug. The pans sizzle, and a breeze carries the scent of frying onions out to the porch. Kids are slipping into shirts handed down from older siblings. Someone's begging for an extra drizzle of honey, while another plots to sneak the last biscuit. And biscuits? Those were a marvel. Made from flour, a slab of lard or butter, and just enough milk to bring it together, biscuits rose tall and flaky in the oven. Sometimes they showed up sweet, slathered in homemade jam or honey. On rougher days, they doubled as the day's sandwich, filled with last night's beans or ham. The joy was in grabbing a biscuit hot from the pan, steam rising as you cracked it open, and deciding which spread to add. Visualize steaming pans lined up, the kitchen window shining on golden pancakes and syrup. Coffee stained the mugs, the tablecloth was a little crooked, and the air was thick with the mix of savory smells, peppery sausage, crisp potato, roasted apples. It wasn't gourmet, but it was always generous, inventive, and deeply comforting. Breakfast was where families forged teamwork, much more than just food. It's kids getting stools to help stir pancake batter, sneaking tastes, or fighting over who broke the most eggshells into the bowl. Parents teaching clever tricks, whisk with a fork so the eggs come out fluffy, or always let biscuits rest before baking. These rituals shaped mornings. They set the tone for facing whatever work or school threw at you. Everyone left the table fueled, not just in their bellies, but in their hearts. But let's slow down for a second and look closer at the world outside that kitchen window. On some mornings, the sky would still be painted gray and pink, chickens scratching outside as the kitchen light glowed warm from within. It wasn't just the inside of the kitchen that brought comfort. The whole morning routine, from pulling on boots to fetch fresh eggs, to gathering wild mint by the fence for tea, made the meal even more meaningful. Sometimes kids would trudge down to the root cellar for a stored apple or a jar of jam, faces pink from the cold, hands warm around a mug as they crowded back by the stove. For a lot of families, resourcefulness bred stories that stuck. One family from Vermont remembers living with cousins crowding every chair and bench. They tell how mom would slice apples so thin you could see light through them, laying them over oatmeal to make it feel like a treat. Or the time everyone laughed when Grandpa tried to make flapjacks with leftover mashed rutabaga, and they actually turned out delicious, if a little odd. There's a real pride in being able to make do, but also finding delight in those oddball dishes. Another example, sometimes, breakfast would double as an impromptu lesson. Mom or dad would call a kid over and say, "Let's see how far we can stretch these eggs today." Maybe they'd only have 4 eggs but a whole family to feed, so a splash more milk, a scoop of flour, and some chopped up potatoes meant everyone got a piece of the casserole. You'd hear, "See, it's not about what we don't have, it's about what we do with what we've got." And even the smallest flavor swaps were celebrated. Remember last fall's pear butter? Someone would ask, spreading the very last bit of it on a thick toast. Or a neighbor would trade a dozen eggs for a loaf of bread, both families riding the wave of whatever was plentiful that week. The sensory details were unforgettable. Wood smoke blending with the smell of percolating coffee, the fizz of apple cider poured into little tin cups on special mornings. Feed on cold floors before grabbing another hot biscuit. The ever-creative repurposing wasn't just about food. It was a way of life. A way of making sure everyone felt cared for, even on the tightest mornings. So what would it look like to bring that inventiveness back? Could you use what's hiding in your fridge and pantry to make a breakfast that's both comforting and resourceful? Could we turn food waste into flavor and everyday challenges into connection? But that wasn't even the strangest part. Some of the wildest, most memorable dishes from those days aren't on breakfast tables anymore, and you'll never guess what made the cut for the most iconic classics. Let's dive straight into the heart of those 1970s country kitchens. If you swung open the door at sunrise, you'd see steam from bubbling pots, smell sugar and spice, and catch the slap of dough hitting the counter. Each scene a little different depending on where you landed in the country. Imagine the creak of worn floorboards as someone tiptoes past, the hiss of bacon on a hot pan, the low murmur of early risers sharing a quick cup of coffee, every sense tuned into the promise of a brand new day. Now, let's race through a countdown of 25 unique breakfast classics that filled bellies and memories. Some will sound familiar, others might make you curious, or honestly, a little shocked. 1. Scrapple. In the Mid-Atlantic, scrapple was king. Pork scraps, cornmeal, and spices, all fried up until crisp. A little lumpy, super savory, perfect with apple butter. Picture the sizzle as a wedge hits a cast iron pan. The crispy crust revealing a tender, herby inside. Old-timers would say, if it's not brown enough, it's not done. 2. Grits, creamy and hot. These were the southern staple. Salt, butter, and sometimes a crumble of cheese on top. You'd see them filling wide bowls, the steam swirling right up to your nose. On cold mornings, kids would wrap chilled fingers around those warm bowls, taking slow bites while listening for the rooster. 3. Johnny cakes, cornmeal pancakes, golden at the edges, often sweetened with a drop of molasses or sorghum. Served hot off the griddle, a true morning comfort. They'd flip with a little half-moon shape and the scent of toasty corn drifting through the kitchen. 4. Fried mush. Not everyone's heard of it, but this Depression-era dish turned leftover cornmeal mush into crispy, golden slices, drizzled with honey or, for an adventure, with salty bacon bits. Grandma might say, waste not, want not, as she'd stack them tall on the plate. 5. Biscuits and chocolate gravy, a southern specialty. It was rich, creamy chocolate poured over tender biscuits, reserved for birthdays or special morning surprises. The way the gravy pooled and shimmered, you'd swear it was dessert dressed up for breakfast. 6. Sausage gravy, white, peppery, and thick. This gravy poured over biscuits or toast could turn any day into a feast. Some added a little extra black pepper for warmth, just like Grandpa liked it. 7. Apple stack cake. Picture layers of thin cake, apples cooked until spiced and sweet, stacked tall and left to meld overnight. Mornings with this? No one ever overslept. Slicing it revealed swirls of cinnamon and melting apples, a special treat on family reunion weekends. 8. Homemade scones. Flaky, buttery, dotted with raisins or whatever fruit was found in the cupboard that week. The smell alone could bring sleepy heads shuffling to the kitchen, pajama-clad and hungry. 9. Cottage cheese pancakes, fluffy, tangy, and super filling. These pancakes brought a creamy layer to classic stacks. Their texture, so different, left a little creamy kiss on the tongue, almost like a secret ingredient only Grandma knew. 10. Oatmeal pancakes. For when oats were plenty, but flour was low. Thick, grainy, extra hearty. Slathered with jam, they hit the spot. Some families would save the nicest preserves, peach, raspberry, wild grape, for these mornings. 11. Tomato gravy. A dash of bacon leftovers, flour, canned tomatoes, all blended to a thick, pink gravy for eggs and grits. Served with a ladle straight from the skillet, it brought color and kick to the table. 12. Fried apples, tart apples, sugar, a flake of cinnamon, bubbling in cast iron. These sent the best aroma through drafty kitchens. The caramelized edges were always picked off by the youngest, who snuck in for an early taste. 13. Molasses toast, slices of dry bread, buttered, swept in molasses, and crisped in the oven. Kids loved it. Parents called it fuel. If there was a school test that day, everyone got molasses toast for an energy burst and a little luck. 14. Sorghum drizzled biscuits. That deep, rich syrup poured over hot biscuits, soaking in fast, sweet, not cloying. You'd hear, "Pass the sorghum," as hands reached out eagerly around the table. 15. Pineapple upside-down muffins, canned pineapple, brown sugar, and a surprise cherry baked into each one. Breakfast or dessert? Yes and yes. The syrupy fruit, still warm, would almost glow in the morning sunlight. 16. Salmon patties, not just for lunch. Salmon from a can, mixed with onion, fried up, and served alongside eggs for something different and special. Fishermen's kids bragged about having these on Fridays, with a story for each bite. 17. Buckwheat cakes, nutty tasting, dense cakes, a farmer's favorite and surprisingly filling with just a little pat of butter. Their earthy scent mingled with strong percolator coffee, both reminders of hard work days ahead. 18. Dandelion omelet. In spring, even the weeds got used. Tender dandelion greens mixed into eggs for a wild, earthy flavor. Little ones might wrinkle their noses until they tasted it, saying, "It's not so bad," between big bites. 19. Venison sausage. In hunting families, sausage came from last fall's freezer stash. Spiced for warmth, fried crisp, gone in a flash. The proud hunter might slice some thin, savoring every bite as a story of the hunt was retold for the 100th time. 20. Flapjacks with jam. Different from pancakes, thicker, chewier, always smothered in the last of the homemade preserves. The kids who helped pick the berries always swore their jam tasted best. 21. Rice porridge. For families with leftover rice, milk and a spoonful of sugar turned it into a surprisingly comforting breakfast bowl. Steam fogged up chilly windows, and everyone paused to savor the warmth. 22. Date nut bread. Dense, sweet bread speckled with sticky dates and walnuts, best slathered in cream cheese. Each thick slice made lunchboxes smell marvelous hours later. 23. Pear honey. Not quite honey, not quite jam, made from overripe pears and sugar, all boiled down for spreading on toast. Grandchildren were always sent to check the bubbling pot as it simmered, sneaking tiny spoonfuls. 24. Corn fritters. Batter made from corn scraped off the cob or canned corn when times got tough. Crisped up and served with honey or syrup. You could hear the crunch from across the room when someone took a bite. 25. Egg in a hole. The simple joy of cutting out the middle of a slice of bread, frying it up with a fresh egg right in the center, it never got old. The cut-out hole toasted alongside for mini dippers, often vanishing before the plate hit the table. Each dish had a reason for showing up on the table. Scrapple and mush let nothing go to waste. Fruit muffins and stack cakes gave kids something to buzz about before school. Tomato gravy and fried apples stretched one can or orchard basket all the way through the week. In those kitchens, creativity and necessity waltzed together. The real win? Smiles, laughter, and plates scraped clean by mid-morning. Some grown-ups would wink and say, "If you're still hungry after breakfast, check your pockets for apple peels." Some combos seem odd today, like molasses on fried mush, dark and sticky, mixing with crisp corn edges, or salty venison sausage tucked beside a scoop of creamy pear honey. These flavors worked because they made the best of what was at hand. Sweet and savory living side by side, always ready for the next surprise. Look closer, and you'll spot unexpected pairings. A slab of molasses toast next to a fried egg with tomato gravy. The sharp comfort of cottage cheese pancakes melting into homemade berry jam. Let's grab a little story. Every Sunday, my grandma made pineapple upside-down muffins from leftover canned fruit. The smell filled her little house. She'd sing softly as she spooned brown sugar into each cup. Then joke, "These are almost too pretty to eat. But we'll manage, won't we?" The muffins never lasted more than 5 minutes once the kids stormed the table. It's the sound I remember. The pop-pop of muffin tins, the happy squeals, the busy forks scraping sugar from the bottom of the paper liners. See flashes of old plates, faded family photos with wide grins, jars of homemade pear honey stacked on the counter. That's not just nostalgia. That's tradition in every sense. A celebration of making mornings special, even when money was tight. These breakfasts made everyone feel cared for, full hearts and full bellies, no matter what was outside the kitchen door. Want to try reviving one or two of these? Grab the basics: oats, cornmeal, canned fruit, or bread a day old. Mix up oatmeal pancakes, savor the sticky molasses toast, or fry some apples in butter and cinnamon, and the smell alone will make you smile. Add a modern twist if you want. Swap gluten-free flour, use almond milk, or sneak in new spices. These recipes adapt, and so can you. And don't forget the joy of sharing. Invite family or friends, and tell the story of what's on their plate. Curious about the oddest dish in the bunch? Well, let's just say dandelion omelet always gets the strongest reaction. Half the kids would wrinkle their noses, half would fight for seconds. Turns out, the wildest breakfasts became the best stories. But don't go anywhere just yet. Next up, we'll see how boxed mixes and canned wonders helped cooks get even more creative. And you might find out your own pantry is full of retro breakfast hacks you never imagined. So the table's cleared, but the morning's not over. Let's talk about a wild shift that crept into kitchens during the 1970s. The age of convenience. Suddenly, boxes of pancake mix, instant oats, and bright cans of fruit landed on every supermarket shelf. Brands like Bisquick, Hungry Jack, and Aunt Jemima promised ease, speed, and fun. They came with cheerful colors, big stripes, cartoon chefs, and pages of recipe ideas printed on the back. The real magic? How home cooks twisted these shortcuts into something with real heart and serious flavor. Picture a faded yellow box of pancake mix sitting on a dented metal shelf. A mom cracks it open, and instantly, there's the smell of flour and vanilla, ready to be anything she imagines. She pours the pre-made mix into a chipped ceramic bowl, then pauses. Here's where the invention starts. First, run through the top players. Pancake mix? Check. It made fast work of Saturday mornings, but few stopped at just add water. Instead, they tossed in a splash of canned peaches, sprinkled a pinch of cinnamon, or folded in a handful of leftover mashed sweet potatoes. These boxed mixes became blank canvases: blueberry pancakes one week, spiced apple the next, peach upside-down pancakes by surprise. Take instant oatmeal. Little packets that opened with a soft whoosh, each promising maple, brown sugar, or even a trace of apple flakes. But store-bought wasn't enough. Cooks would stir in extra fruit, drizzle in a glug of honey, or top the oats with crispy bacon for a mix of sweet and salty. Kids fought for first choice of toppings, and every bowl came out a little different. Canned fruit deserves a special spotlight. The syrupy gold of halved peaches and pineapple chunks was the treat kept for Sundays or the days when fresh fruit was nowhere in sight. That sweet juice wasn't wasted, either. It went into pancake batter, slow-cooked porridge, or even swirled into yogurt. Grandma would line up the cans, her fingers stained from cherry juice, and build the day's surprise: muffins, cobblers, even a quick jam to spread on toast. Every drop was stretched, and nothing went unused. Let's catch a scene. The kitchen is buzzing. There's clinking glass, the hum of a hand mixer, and laughter as the kids dare each other to taste test chopped frozen bananas or experimental peanut butter pancakes. Grandpa's by the stove, carefully pouring boxed mix batter into shapes, hearts, smiley faces, animals, while teasing, "Who gets the first one that doesn't burn?" And the improvising never stopped. Some mornings, Mom reaches for leftover ham from dinner the night before. She chops it small and layers it with cubes of bread, a handful of cheese, and a few cracked eggs, all whisked together in a buttered casserole dish. As it bakes, the whole kitchen smells like sharp cheddar and warm ham, the bread turning soft and gooey at the bottom, crisp and golden up top. When it hits the table, forks clatter in excitement, and the casserole is gone before the oven's cooled down. These weren't just quick fixes. They were ways to make things last, and to turn simple ingredients into little celebrations. Tired of flat pancakes? Drop an extra egg into the boxed mix, swap water for milk, add a tablespoon of melted butter or a pinch of baking powder to get that extra lift. Pancakes would rise tall, soft on the inside, golden brown streaks where the butter hit the pan. Or try pouring your batter over leftover apples or canned cherries for a gooey, fruity surprise in every bite. Eggs, especially, got the homemade treatment. Instead of scrambling fast, cooks slowed down, whisked gently, flipped and folded with patience, and finished with a splash of milk or cream to keep them creamy and soft. If you had day-old biscuits lying around, don't toss them. Slice, toast, and drizzle with honey, or layer in a biscuit bake with eggs and cheese. Nothing wasted, nothing boring. But let's dig deeper into a memory that might feel familiar. Have you ever walked into a kitchen still warm from the oven? Sunlight slipping through yellow curtains, and the table crowded with mismatched mugs, syrup bottles gone sticky, and plates piled high? That's where the real breakfast alchemy happened. One dad I talked to remembers watching his mom transform stale cinnamon rolls into bread pudding, with nothing but eggs, milk, and a shake of nutmeg. It was magic, he said. By the time it came out of the oven, it tasted better than anything you could buy from a store. The edges would get caramelized, and that nutty smell would drift all the way upstairs. It sounds simple, but we all raced for the corner pieces. Or consider this, in small-town diners in the 80s, cooks would use leftover pancakes from the morning rush and turn them into sweet sandwich snacks by spreading peanut butter between them, dipping them in egg, and pan-frying until golden. A server named Rita once said, "No wasted pancakes here." Those were our secret bestsellers. Picture the sizzle as the peanut butter starts to melt and the edges crisp. The air fills with a nutty, warm smell that somehow says home. And it wasn't just savory stuff or sweets. Imagine a grandma's trick of folding grated carrots and walnuts into boxed muffin mix, making what she called kitchen sink cakes. To her, it was a way to use up odds and ends from the fridge, and the little flecks of orange and crunch of walnuts made those muffins a hit at every church breakfast. "You can taste everything that went into it," she'd say, handing one over with a wink. Vintage cook tips were like kitchen secrets passed from hand to hand. Letting the batter rest, using seltzer water, even greasing the skillet with saved bacon fat from a coffee mug on the stove. It wasn't just about the food, it was about the stories tied into each step. The laughter, the little mistakes, the way the kitchen sounded when forks scraped pan and someone yelled, "Save me the last piece." For the home chef looking for new tricks, here are a few vintage cook's secrets. To fluff up boxed pancakes, let the batter rest for 10 minutes. Add a sprinkle of baking powder or a dash of seltzer water for serious lift. Whip eggs with a fork, not a whisk, for a silkier texture. Grease pans with bacon fat for extra flavor. Open biscuit dough cans carefully so the shock doesn't flatten them before baking. So, here's an open invitation. Try a retro breakfast challenge. Set aside just one morning this week where you use only what's hiding in your pantry and fridge. Boxed, canned, leftover, or fresh. Grab the family, dig out the pancake mix you forgot about, throw in some extra fruit or that half-empty jar of nut butter. Mix, bake, fry, or toast until you've recreated a little morning magic from the past. Better yet, share your creations. Snap a photo, tell your own twist on a classic, and pass the recipe to a friend. These moments of resourcefulness and fun are the real treasures, bringing new energy into old favorites and proving that a good breakfast never goes out of style. But is that all there is to it? What actually happened to those warm, busy tables and creative breakfasts? Did convenience really erase the connection? Or did something deeper change in the way we start our days? Well, the story of country breakfasts disappears into something even bigger, and you'll want to see just how much mornings have changed. Maybe more than you think. So you're probably wondering, if country breakfasts were so special, why did they start to disappear? After all, what could really beat the comfort of a homemade biscuit, the sound of a crowded table, or the joy of turning leftovers into something that felt new? Well, it turns out, a whole world of fast-paced change was stirring outside those farmhouse doors. Let's peel back the layers, one by one. First, there's the rise of the grab-and-go. As families got busier, mornings turned from a shared routine into a countdown clock. Instead of lingering over toast and eggs, more people reached for cereal bars, instant toaster pastries, or little cups of flavored yogurt. The kitchen, once bright with steam from sizzling skillets, often sat quiet and dark. Picture a child dashing out the door, backpack bouncing, with a granola bar half unwrapped. No need for plates or pots, just quick and easy. Fast food breakfast menus got bigger, and convenience stores started stacking pre-wrapped muffins and biscuits right by the register. But let me take you back, just for a moment, to a Sunday morning in 1965. Imagine a family of 5 seated around a breakfast table. Sunlight streaming through embroidered curtains. The table alive with the sound of soft laughter and the clink of spoons. There's a pan of sausage gravy bubbling in the middle, a basket of biscuits, and someone is lovingly spooning homemade apple butter on their plate. In that setting, time seemed to slow down. Compare it to today, when a parent's voice calls out, "We're going to be late." And instead of gathering, everyone scatters through the house grabbing what they can. But it wasn't just about having less time. The way we thought about what we eat was changing too. Social media exploded, filling our screens with glossy shots of smoothie bowls and fancy avocado toast. Magazines showed perfect plates, no mess, no leftover crumbs, no chipped mugs, which made those homey, mix-and-match breakfasts look almost old-fashioned. Food marketers knew families felt busy and sold the promise of nutrition on the run. Prefab breakfast drinks and microwavable bowls took over where homemade oatmeal and creative casseroles once sat. Let's hear from Grace, a grandmother from Tennessee, who remembers her grandkids pleading for rainbow-colored cereal bars after seeing them on TV. They told me, "Nana, no one eats grits anymore. All my friends bring these bars to school." It made me sad, she shares, her eyes reflecting a mix of nostalgia and loss. Think about what else got lost along the way. The smells and textures that made breakfast real, warm bread, fresh coffee, even a bit of burnt bacon now and then. Today, so many mornings taste like the inside of a wrapper or the chill of a glass straight from the fridge. Of course, no one can ignore the money side, either. As food prices jumped and wages struggled to keep up, families made tough choices. Many had to hold down odd hours or extra jobs, leaving less and less time for long shared mornings. By the 1980s and 90s, it became normal to eat in shifts or skip breakfast entirely, grabbing a coffee at work, or letting kids find their own snacks in the cupboard. Even when people longed for those old rituals, the reality made it nearly impossible to gather everyone at the same table. I met one family from Ohio who used to have pancake breakfasts every Saturday. The dad told me, "Once I started working 2 jobs, we just couldn't do it anymore. The kids have soccer, my wife's at her shift, and I'm lucky to grab a banana on my way out. I do miss those days." It's a story that's played out in countless homes, each empty chair a quiet witness to a memory fading away. Something else quietly slipped away: the tradition of passing on recipes and stories. Breakfast, once a place for sharing family news and teaching kitchen secrets, started to vanish. Grandparents used to hand down not just a recipe card, but hands-on tricks. How to flip a pancake perfectly. How to slice apples for frying. How to taste if the biscuit dough was just right. With screens taking over as morning entertainment and school or work schedules shifting, those intergenerational moments became rare. Consider this. A young girl sits at her grandmother's kitchen table, watching as her grandma pinches butter into dough. She asks, "Why do you use your hands instead of a spoon?" And grandma answers, "So I know by feel when it's ready, not by look." Little lessons like that, moments that mix love with tradition, are disappearing from too many mornings. In their place, bulletproof coffees, energy drinks, and protein shakes labeled meal replacements. The result? Empty dishes, yes, but also empty seats. Old photo albums show crowded tables, with sunlight glowing in through cotton curtains and a half-asleep dog waiting for crumbs underfoot. Compare that to kitchens today, where lights hum quietly, pans hang untouched, and a lone cup of coffee sits beside a laptop. Even the biggest family gatherings started to feel less anchored by shared food and more about convenience. And if you pause to listen early on a weekday morning, you might catch the distant beeping of a microwave, but rarely the laughter of kids sharing a joke or a grown-up reading aloud the comics from the morning paper. It's a quieter, faster world. Sometimes that quiet has an edge of loneliness. Of course, technology fueled this change too. Why wait 20 minutes for slow-cooking oatmeal when there's a pouch that's ready in 60 seconds? Why bake a full pan of biscuits if there's a microwavable option that fits in a purse or lunchbox? Smart fridges, delivery apps, and even breakfast recipes designed for air fryers traded patience for speed. The result? Fewer slow mornings, more fast bites, and just a little less warmth in the way we greet the day. Still, it's not all gloomy. There are patches of hope, food blogs dedicated to old recipes, TV chefs showing viewers how to recreate classics, and online groups sharing faded family photos and handwritten recipe cards. Every once in a while, you catch a whiff of cinnamon bread, or see a grown-up pause at a bakery window, eyes shining for just a second with a childhood memory. Let's not forget, too, the resurgence of farmers markets and community breakfasts, where neighbors still gather at long tables for pancakes and fresh fruit, laughing about the latest town gossip. Some families are finding their way back, using Sunday mornings to reconnect over scratch-made waffles or hot grits. They've swapped screens for laughter and stories, even if just for a few minutes. So, what really happened? Time grew short, choices got easy, and families got pulled in too many directions. The kitchen lost its center stage, replaced by drive-thru lines or breakfast at midnight on a glowing screen. But does that mean those traditions have to stay gone? Or could bringing them back, one recipe at a time, help us find a little piece of what we've lost? Hold on to that thought, because next, we'll show you how to revive those vanished breakfasts starting today, and how to create new memories around your own kitchen table, even in a world that never slows down. So, now you've seen just how special those old 1970s country breakfasts really were. They were more than just food. They were mornings, memories, and a little burst of joy to start the hardest days. But here's the thing, you don't have to leave those traditions behind. You can bring all that comfort and creativity right into your kitchen. Even if your schedule feels hectic, your fridge feels empty, or your family is running in a million directions. Let's get practical. Those vintage recipes weren't just born out of hardship. They were smart, healthy, and actually really good for you. Think about it. Oats, eggs, seasonal fruit, whole grains, homemade jams. They're packed with fiber, protein, and the kind of lasting energy you won't find in a drive-thru breakfast sandwich. Plus, the ingredient lists are short and honest. You can ditch the mystery preservatives and pick up what's cheap, fresh, or sitting in your pantry right now. Here's how to get started. First, keep it simple. Pick one lost dish you're curious about. Maybe it's classic oatmeal pancakes, or those unforgettable fried apples. Jot down the few ingredients you need. A sack of oats, a couple of apples, an egg or two. You don't need fancy tools or chef skills. A good pan, a fork, maybe a wooden spoon, and you're ready. When you're out shopping, look for bargains and basics just like families did back then. Grab the store brand oats or whatever fruit is on sale. If you find day-old bread, even better. It gives French toast or bread pudding that extra magic. Your freezer might hold some forgotten berries or even a bag of shredded cheese that can help top off a new creation. Let your ingredients guide you instead of a strict recipe. But here's where the real fun begins. Invite your family or friends. Pull the kids onto a stool and show them how to crack eggs. Expect a little mess, because it's half the fun. Let them take turns stirring the pancake mix or sprinkling cinnamon on the fried apples. Even those with no kitchen experience can help butter a pan or taste for sweetness. If you're flying solo, blast some oldies on the radio and let the memories and maybe a little thing fill the room. Breakfast can become a time to share stories too. Maybe you tell your kids about your own childhood breakfasts, or ask a grandparent about their favorite dish growing up. Pass on a clever hack you learned in this video, like using mashed banana for pancakes, or dusting a little brown sugar over the day's hot oatmeal. Don't worry about perfection. The best memories come from burned edges, giggled over mistakes, and the proud feeling of plates wiped clean. We'd love to hear what happens when you bring these lost breakfasts back to your own table, even if you make them at dinner or share them with roommates. Snap a photo. Tell us if you discovered a new favorite, or share that one new twist your family insisted on keeping. Maybe Uncle Joe likes molasses on everything. Maybe your toddler only eats apples if they're fried in butter. Every variation becomes another link in the chain of tradition. And if you're hungry for more, stay tuned. Our next episodes will dive into forgotten lunchboxes and the magic of simple, hearty country dinners from the 70s. There's a whole world of comfort waiting to be revived, one meal at a time. So, next time you stand in your kitchen, searching the fridge for ideas, or wondering what to do with that half loaf of old bread, or bottom of the bag oats, remember, this is exactly where creative cooking started. Maybe, by trying just one or two of these vintage breakfasts, you'll start a new tradition for your family too. And who knows, maybe it's those little moments, the scent of jam bubbling on toast, the laughter around the table, the warmth in a mug, That'll remind us there's still room for connection, no matter how fast life gets. So what if these lost breakfasts aren't really lost at all? What if they're just waiting for someone, you, right now, to rediscover them?